Today on Seashore we have Brendan Dawes, digital artist, 3D artist, graphic designer, speaker, brilliant all-round guy who has a very, very interesting things to say about business and running your own business and the way we create content and the way we consume products and consume media. And yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. So let's go. And welcome to Seashore. Today we have a very special guest. We have Brendan Dawes. Would you give a little bit of an intro to yourself and what you do?
Well, my name's Brendan. I'm a designer, an artist, I guess, these days. No one really asks me to design things these days, you know. They just don't. I don't know if they ever did, really. Yeah, and I make stuff for brands, different brands around the world, mostly one-off kind of marketing campaign activities, I guess. So everything from installations, public installations, to artwork that will be used as part of a campaign, all kinds of things. So yeah, I like to make stuff, I guess, and I've been working for myself since 2012, and yeah, it seems to be going okay.
And what drove you to that journey to be self-employed? And what, you know, was there a sort of incident in a job that you didn't like, or was there something that you just like, I've had enough, I just want to work for myself?
I guess I didn't really know what I wanted to do anyway when I left school. You know, I was a photographer for a while for the newspapers, because my dad was a photographer. So he kind of asked someone, you know, would he fancy taking me on as an apprentice? So I did that for a couple of years. But I never really knew. I always wanted to do something creative, but I never had a career in mind, whether freelance or working for someone else. And eventually, through various things, you know, from an electronics factory, working in that for 8 years, the web came along, and I taught myself how to make web pages, like many of us did. And then I went to work for a company called Subnet, and then I went after 4 years, went to another company in Manchester, and we built that up into 30 people as an agency. But I think I'd become, when you get to that level, you end up managing people, which I actually quite like. It's quite nice to look after people, and put systems in place that allow people to grow and that kind of stuff. So, you know, there was a lot of nice aspects to it, but even though I was still making my own stuff as well, I just wanted to get back to the simplicity of me making the work rather than me. You know, as a creative director, you just point at the screen and go, can you move that 5 pixels or whatever it is?
Yeah.
You know, so I never really did that anyway. You know, I let people find their own way. But that was it, really. I sort of had enough. I had enough of the commute. I was commuting to Manchester every day. And I did that for 12 years. And it gets, you know, you read a lot of books and stuff like that on the train, which is good. But no, I just wanted to have a more simpler life, I guess, in a way. And I like being in control of my own destiny. As you know, it's up and down with freelance, of course, of working for yourself. You know, you can't fall back on anything. You haven't got holiday pay and stuff like that. But it just kind of suits me and my lifestyle, I guess.
You said an artist and a designer. Do you have any sort of like inspirations?
Yeah, I think most of my career has been predicated on nice people being kind to me, hanging out with people who are better than you, better than, you know, what you can do, so you can learn from them. Right from when I joined the fledgling little web design company in Burnley, they were in Nelson, just outside Burnley, that hotbed of of multimedia. But, there was someone, there's a guy called Julian who was like just an amazing Photoshop guy. And he just taught me, through working there, all these Photoshop shortcuts that I can't even tell you what they are because it's like muscle memory. So yeah. I can't like, do that, but I can do it. Like I guess most people who learn Photoshop and stuff. So there's people like that. So from a practical point of view, and then there's other people. There's a guy called Hillman Curtis who was an uber famous web designer back in the day. Sadly, no longer with us. A New Yorker, and I ended up going to work for him in New York, and just through a chance meeting, and just having the balls really to go up to him at a conference one day and go, "Oh, hello, Hillman. My name's Brendan. I really love your work." And next minute, he was inviting me to speak at conferences in Seattle, and we just grew a friendship. So weirdly enough, a piece of work that I'm about to start is through. There's a friend of Hillman's that is a friend of mine called Todd Ferguson. And we had a video chat last week about a new piece of work. I haven't spoken to Todd for a while, but so, these things come back around,
Yeah.
So there's that from those side of things of people I've actually met. And then from other things, I was always I'm more interested in film design and graphic design rather than web design. I thought, for me, the web was an outlet. It was a publishing medium. I could use this amazing medium, and people could see it. And it might be one person, it might be a million or whatever. That's what appealed to me, rather than just my work sitting on a hard drive. And also the fact that you can learn so much stuff through the web. Any technique, you can just dial it up and just learn it and practice it. Doesn't mean you're any good at it, but you keep practicing. So there's all those things. I'm more interested in looking at industries and people who do stuff outside of the sphere of what I do. So I don't, I don't look at other people's interactive installations, or I'm more interested in, say, architecture or, all kinds of different things that aren't naturally related to what I do. And I think I learn more through that. So people say to me, "Have you read this book? Have you read that book?" And I'm like, "No." Have you read that book about that interaction designer? Or have you? Like, no, I have read, E. Cummings and stuff like that, because to me it's more interesting. So that's just how my brain works, and it's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in.
And you mentioned you've spoken at conferences and things like that. How did you discover that you like doing that, or do you like doing that? And do you get nervous? And I guess the final part of that question is, how much of that conference speaking has helped with growing your business from from meeting people and things like that?
I do like it, I have to say. I'm not. I have someone I met last year at a conference, a Portuguese guy who's an amazing title designer, and he did a thing on Instagram the other day how he doesn't rehearse and stuff like that, and he is just himself on stage, and he's very honest, which is kind of my approach. I don't rehearse stuff, and I don't really know what I'm going to say, to be honest, which is not how everyone does it. That just suits my style. I've always liked it. I'm not a natural show-off, though. I'm quite shy. So It's kind of, I don't know. I like being on stage, I guess. I don't find it particularly intimidating. I think one of the reasons is because I'm talking about stuff I know and I actually believe in. The worst talks, without doubt, are when you get creative directors from massive agencies who present, and it's obviously an intern has put this PowerPoint together, and they've only just been, and they're just going through like, well, this is a piece of work, and it's so boring.
Yeah,
I think what people want to see is honesty, when things went wrong, how you learned from it. So that's the kind of stuff that I talk about. As for being part of my business and how I get work, yeah, absolutely it does. I've had pieces of work and commissions from people who saw me 4 years ago at a conference, say, and I suddenly get an email. It's not always an immediate thing. And then you've got big corporate conferences who do pay, good money. You've got the more community-based ones that often don't pay anything. But it's about value, and value can be either money or it can be, a networking opportunity or the chance to meet amazing people who you then collaborate with, or just they introduce you to a new piece of work, or I don't know, whatever it is, or they're just nice to hang around with, and you learn from them as well. So that's a big plus for me. But yeah, I do really enjoy it. I think it's I just like meeting people in that situation, And I think the other thing I would say is I try not to, when I'm on stage, act like I'm on stage and that I'm better than everyone in the audience, because I know there's people in the audience way better than me. And I think people are always surprised when you have a chat with them afterwards. I always ask them about why. I always ask them about them. Right, and they're really quite surprised oftentimes. They're like, oh, I thought it'd just be like, want to talk about himself all the time. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, I say, well, tell me about you and what do you do? I think it's a good way to be,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen the opposite from other people, I've seen, but that's just, again, that's just how I do things. But yeah, I do like it.
So you speak a lot about documenting your process and, how you do work. Do you worry about kind of people taking that and being more successful in sort of your line of work than you, or are you really happy to give that knowledge away?
I see this a lot from maybe students or younger people, that they hold on to an idea and they don't want to show it anyone because they think someone's going to rip them off. Well, there's a few things. First of all, someone is probably doing that anyway somewhere around the world, and so you just got to get it out there. As for people, ripping me off or making something more of a success than I can, I think that's just part of it. I think I've learned over the years to let it go.
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother me. I find that sometimes, you release something and then people say, oh, I was going to do that, or I'm going to take this and make it better. And they end up, they just don't. There's a lot of people who talk it, but don't actually do it. So I don't really worry about it. And it's also, there's a lot of subtleties. It's, everything repeats, within design or whatever. It's hard to be original. And I think it comes down to subtle changes or technique. And I often say to clients, why do you come to me? Why don't you go to someone else? Why have you come to me? And they feed back to me what they see in my work, stuff that I don't put on my website as a mission statement or anything. They just see it, and that's for me a big plus, that it's ingrained in my work. But it's not anything I then look at a piece of work and think, oh, right, I haven't added me into it. It's already in there because that's the only way I know how to do it. Now, I can't explain what it is, but clients, luckily, kind of see something.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be confident in your own abilities to not worry too much about what everyone else is doing, because you will go nuts. You will not release anything. It's very easy to look at other people's work and think, God, why am I even bothering? This is amazing stuff,
Of course, yeah.
And it's easy to do that. And inevitably you do that. a lot of the time. But you've got to put it aside and go, well, I'm just going to. Frank Gehry, the architect, once said on a documentary, become an expert in you. All you want to concentrate on is just being the best you can be. And I think there's enough work for everyone. So I don't really worry. And I try and reinvent what I'm doing all the time anyway.
Speaking of reinventing yourself, you do design and produce products that you sell as well on your website. How did you come up with the idea for doing products? And that's sort of quite different for somebody who's sort of more of a in an agency environment, I guess, in that way. How did that come about?
Well, I did products quite a few years ago, at a proper commercial level. I did a few products a few years ago when I was part of another company that, there were products that I created. I don't know. I've always liked physical things you can touch and hold rather than, just digital things that can seem a bit ephemerate. You can't hold them and then, as soon as you turn your screen off, they're gone. So, I like physical stuff. So I wanted to put some stuff into the world that I thought deserved to exist. Not try and create more landfill, just useless things. By the way, useful doesn't have to mean utilitarian. It can be, if it makes you smile, then it's, it's a useful thing. But
sure.
We had quite a bit of success with some other products. Movie Peg, I haven't got one in here, but it was the iPhone stand that I did, which was really successful. And then Popper, which was the Kickstarter thing, which was the button for your iPhone, and that went nuts for like quite a while. But then I took over the company by myself, and it was me who actually managed to get it all out there, sunk a crazy amount of money into it, lost a crazy amount of money. And, so that was a difficult period. This was just before I went on my own again,
Right, yeah.
Part of simplifying my life that was hard. It's really hard, especially when you're on your own, a company of one. And so there was that. So when a couple of years ago, I thought I want to do some products again. I wanted to do stuff that was a bit easier. So not hardware. The problem with hardware is you've got to support it. Hardware breaks, all that kind of stuff. Electronics, it's complicated. So I wanted to do just very simple things, whether it's prints or stationery or household decor things. So I had a few ideas, and then just started to look at how to manufacture them. I think that's the great thing about living in the times we do now, is that you can do a lot of this stuff in a very low run way. You don't have to manufacture thousands of things, and that's what interests me. I'm interested in small scale, limited edition stuff that I can craft to be the best it can be, work with nice people to make it. So the notes to myself thing that I did, that was designed by my friends at Dust in Sheffield. It was printed by these amazing printers in Leeds. I'm not from Yorkshire. I don't know why I'm using Yorkshire people all the time, but they're all friends of mine or acquaintances, and they're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of stuff, and I thought, let's see how it goes, and it's been okay. It's ticking over quite nicely. It's not anything I can earn a living from at the moment, just that. But it all adds to the revenue streams, So it's been, and you know what? I like sending people in. It's like sending things in the mail to people.
Right.
Have you ever thought that if someone had done a Kickstarter, got this idea, you put a piece of paper in a box and then it can come out anywhere else in the world. And you pay for it like £1. I mean, it just wouldn't. People would have laughed, right?
Yeah.
And that is the postage system still blows my mind. It's still amazing.
It's one of those things that everybody loves getting post. There's not one person that doesn't love getting post, right?
No. Yeah, okay, you probably don't like getting bills, but a nice piece of post, whether it's a letter or a parcel, whatever, I think it's a great thing. So yeah, I think the postal system is still kind of magical in many ways.
Yeah.
Even before the automation, in Victorian times or whatever. So yeah, I've always been fascinated by it. So that's still not gone away. I still like it when I get an order and put it in the post. And, saying that, I've had someone from America contact me today and his thing has still not arrived. So it's like, oh, Jesus. Because you realise as well, a lot of mail goes missing.
I guess especially at this time when people are a bit kind of like holding on to it as well.
Well, this is it. They haven't got the staff at the minute. I think they're a third down, so things takes longer. But yeah, sometimes things just disappear. But yeah, no, it's good. And it's also for me another outlet. Rather than staring at a screen all day, I can I like adding little notes in it and stuff like that because I looked at using Amazon warehouse and stuff, and I did send some stuff there. But the problem is, it's not me putting it together. I can't put the little notes in. I can't, even though it's more efficient.
Yeah, you just lack that personal touch.
Yeah, I think so. And then you also can't send to like America and places like that from Amazon unless you've got it in those countries. So it makes it actually more difficult. So yeah, there's lots of learnings, but it's been good.
I think my favorite piece is the silent state Gameboy. I love that piece.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with the Gameboy. Anyway, there was the Marcus Brownlee did a YouTube video about the history of the Gameboy and stuff, and I was like, this is the best video I've ever seen on YouTube. Really? It's fantastic. Yeah, it was really good.
I think it's one of the most beautifully designed objects. The original Gameboy.
It's fantastic, and it's so iconic as well. Not necessarily just the object; it's just when you turn it on and it makes that noise, and everybody knows that noise. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. I think noises like that, whether it's the Mac startup sound and that, and there's lots of other examples, I guess. But yeah, the whole thing was kind of perfect. You can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have so many fond memories of a Game Boy as well, which is why it had to go into that little collection that I've done. And what I've liked about that is people have bought like the whole thing, like all three. When people were buying it at first, it was like they obviously wanted the whole thing on the wall, which was nice. Yeah.
So between doing conferences and doing products and doing your day job of and speaking and R&D and all that kind of stuff, how do you fit it all in? I mean, do you take time in the day for yourself as well?
I don't really have. I'm quite organised in one way. I'm quite sitting down doing the work. I tend to take breaks quite regularly, so I might do it depends. As you might get in the flow of something, and the next minute 3 hours have gone by, and that's great, fine if you've done a great piece of work. But oftentimes I try and get every 50 minutes take a break or something for 10 minutes. I'm quite flexible in how I can do my day because I'm not answering to anyone but the client. And often the clients my last few clients have all been in America, so you've also got that they're way behind, they're 8 hours behind or 5 hours behind, so there's that. And also I know what I need to get done in the day, so I can work it out. There's not really that many late nights, I have to say. With something like the products, that can take some time. So like silent state, to get one of those together is quite labor intensive.
Right.
So I've tried I have it all set up, so I try and make it like an assembly line with whatever product it is. Again, using the systems that are out there online from Royal Mail click and drop, so I'm not queuing at the post office. It's all done online. Mm-hmm. I've even got special labels. It's brilliant. So that you try and make it more efficient, make the admin more efficient, and then you can concentrate on the actual doing the work. So that's how it works for me. I've got things like I have my little chef's chitty thing where I put physical notes of what I'm going to do, like a chef has. So that again, that's just how I like to work. But no, there isn't any hard and fast rules. By I don't know 6, 7 o'clock, I'm downstairs watching, Tipping Point or whatever. It might be quite normal, stuff.
As in your kind of studio in pictures, and obviously we can see it in the background here. And you use a lot of different tech and the different things. Is tech something you're into? I know you do a lot of coding as well, and you kind of try and bridge that gap of sort of coding and design. Do you like tech? Do you like different new technologies, or you kind of like stick with what you know, or that kind of thing?
Well, I think, I don't know about you, but I think it can be really overwhelming, the amount of, whether that's new technologies like web technologies or, new frameworks, say, or whatever, to other technologies, whether it's hardware or the new VR thing or the new AR thing, or, should I be doing more AR work, or should I be learning how that works? Or, but you realise, I think, that you can't know it all.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So it's good to be aware of it. So say right now it's all about AI and machine learning, right? And while I've done a little bit of that, and I'm starting to use it a little bit more in my work, I think it still comes down to the ability to resonate with people. And it actually doesn't matter how you make that work. Make the actual work. No one's really... Yeah, there are things where you can say, well, I used artificial intelligence on this, and that's like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's great. But a lot of times when people are seeing or looking at the work, they're not really too bothered. They're more interested in, does it resonate with them? Does it make them think a little bit differently or whatever? So that's what I concentrate on. That said, I think technology to me is more of an enabler. It's about possibilities. So when I started working in Houdini beginning of last year, it was December 2018, I'd seen my peers starting to use this thing. And I was like, God, the quality of this is nuts. And I thought, I need to, and I knew you could code in it as well. So I thought, I need to explore it. So over Christmas that year, that's what I did. And over 2 weeks, I started to learn it, and I'm obviously still learning it. But I then got a client piece of work in January of 2019, and I thought, right, I'm using this. So, and it was just, that job was a real big success. And so that's what I use a lot now, because it's the quality that I've always wanted. It's more of a 3-dimensional thing, but it depends what work I'm trying to do. If it's 2-dimensional, then I probably won't use that. But it allows me the craft that I'm looking for. That I felt I've been, like 2018. I thought my work was pretty dreadful, or ordinary. I was going through the same processes that I'd always used. And I don't know if I was complacent about it, but I felt like I'm still using this technique, which I've used for years, and just blah, blah, blah. I thought I needed to push myself, scare myself, and do new stuff. And also, of course, other people are starting to use all these new things, and you can be left behind, So that's what technology is for me. It's a way to ramp up the quality, ramp up the crafting. And right now, I said to someone the other day, I'm not in any hurry. I'm into, going deep with the work, going deep with the craft, like learning how can I do that and make it better and that kind of stuff. That's what I'm interested in, not knocking out 1,000 things every year. I mean, I'm always amazed. There's the story of the guy that solved the riddle of longitude, John Harrison, and you can see his clock at the Maritime Museum. It took him 50 years, and it's like on one problem. So you think, wow, I mean, can you imagine working on something for 50 years? Nowadays, and the way we work and the way, there's something to be said for that, to just the focus is incredible. So I'm interested in that idea of not being distracted by, and even though I am using some machine learning stuff in my work now, it's kind of subtle, but it's something I am exploring now because I feel I'm ready to do that. But that's what technology is to me. It's a way to make my work better.
One thing I've noticed from your Twitter account is your kind of love of well-made products, and kind of going back into the products that you make yourself. It's clothes or pens or kind of even the boxes that your own products come in. What makes something? Where's the question? What makes something worth paying for?
I think it can be either quality or functional, and if the two come together as well, then that's like that's the dream, really. Oftentimes, when things look like a luxury thing, they can be really badly made, or they just don't work very well,
Yeah.
I've got some functional tools that I use, and they probably look terrible, but they're fantastic. They work really, really well. I was eyeing up this this tool chest on Etsy. It's like a cantilever tool thing from the 70s, rusted to hell, but still work. And it's like 20 quid or something. And I don't really need it. But the one I've got is like a plastic one. It's horrible. But this other one you could see the stories in it. Someone had used this forever, and it was proper. And the description on this product was like, who wouldn't want to own this? It's just full of personality, and it's rusted to buggery, but it still works. It's like I bought my Bang & Olufsen amplifier from eBay years ago, like 50 quid or something. It's like from the 60s or 70s. It's still sat there working. And to me, that's an amazing, beautiful product, because it's how many products do we have nowadays that, 2 years in and they're dead, even Apple products, as we know, this obsolescence. So I like stuff that lasts. I think that's a great, great product that just continues to be used. I've got things like rulers, that are just beautiful rulers, I don't need to buy any more rulers. I keep bloody buying them. From pens, a nicely made pen, I don't know. I think it's about personality, maybe, or the fact that story to tell, like that rusty tool chest. My watch, I mean, this is a true story. When I was speaking at a thing in Salt Lake City, I did an interview after the talk, and there was a young lad there, and someone else asking the questions, and he was operating the camera. So I'm like talking away like this, and then after the camera stops, he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I thought, it's going to be about design or whatever. And he was he was like 18 or something. He goes, "Where'd you get your watch?" I was like, I got it off eBay. It's like from 1958. It's like, it wasn't expensive. It's a nice watch, but it's not a Rolex or anything. He was fascinated by the watch, and I've had so many other people, like, if you're in a bar and they go, "I like your watch," it's just an analog watch, right? But the thing is, it's from when when I tell people, it's from 1958, and they're like, "Bloody hell, it's still working." It's like, will Apple Watches be working in 50 years? Very much doubt it, So And also, I don't think anyone has ever said, where'd you get your watch? You know, if it's an Apple Watch, they might ask you how you're getting on with it or what do you use it for. So I like objects that can, trigger a conversation, I guess. Those are always quite interesting. And again, that comes down to, the story of that object or whatever. So, yeah.
I saw a slingshot online, and it's a slingshot, and it's about this big. It's not very big at all, and it looked really well made. And I'm like, I've zero use for that. Every fiber of my being was like, I should buy that. Why that looked cool? And I haven't bought it yet, but I still look at it most days. I'm like, I'll probably buy that. I don't know why.
It's just a nice thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I saw some stationery that I wasn't really aware of. Begins with A, but they're a French company, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And it's 10 little cards are like 40 quid. It's ridiculous, but they're beautiful. They're absolutely. And I think they're just a nice thing to own. I have some other nice stationery, and every time I use it, it's an absolute pleasure to use it, because it's a nice thing.
Like I said, it brings a smile to your face.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the craft that goes into it and the love and the care, So, so that's what turns me on about good products, I guess.
Your manifesto is something that you have talked about in your talks and is also available that you can buy on your store.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's many years and many lessons and things like that have learned for working on projects. How did you get the idea of coming up with that and putting it out there for other people to look at and use?
Well, there's an amazing manifesto by Bruce Mao, the Canadian designer, and it's called an incomplete manifesto for change, right? And you can look it up online, and it's just a constantly added to list of things, and it's like it can be like it's got like practical stuff like never enter awards, just don't, and some of it's quite funny. I can't remember a lot of them, but it's really good and it's quite funny and witty and very frank. So I've always liked that. So I wanted to do my own, and I've always written down in a notebook that I have just for this is just notes of those kind of things, like little phrases or little things I've learned. And when I was doing notes to myself, I was talking to the people that were helping me design it about what could this thing be. I said, well, I've got this little book of like things I've written down. Maybe we could compile them into some kind of manifesto. So the original thing was it's a poster, but now it's also an A5 thing, which is a screen print now. So yeah, it was that really.
Yeah.
But you're putting them down, and I'm saying to my friends at Dust, I'm going, is this shit? Is it crap? Because I didn't want it to be, I kind of, the irony is I bloody hate these Instagram feeds that are all just like quotes.
Right, yeah.
Like, do what you love. And like, well, I work as a toilet cleaner and I don't love it, but I have to because, it
pays the bill, yeah.
It's patronising, I find. Yeah. So I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to just be, messages to myself, really. If you ever have a down day or whatever, you can look at it. So yeah, it was just that, and some things got cut. Like all good things, trying to remove stuff to make it better. So there's a few more than is actually in it. There was one like "Don't work without a contract." I was like, yeah, it's a bit practical. That was like it's not very inspiring. Which is an important point, but it shouldn't really be on there. So there's a few things that we took out.
Yeah.
And people seem to have loved it. I've had people say, have you got one that isn't folded? Because originally it was a folded thing. And so that's why I did the prints. I think I've even had it as a download and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just nice that it's out there and people seem to like it and it resonates with people. But yeah, I definitely didn't want it to be sort of patronizing or, I find a lot of these things just too simplistic, and I definitely don't want it to be that, So, yeah.
So obviously we're in a current state of limbo from this pandemic. Are you worried about people having a lack of funds to spend on things like new websites or design or whatever that is? That something that you've thought about and trying to mitigate against potentially?
Yeah, I think it's certainly on my mind. I think with things like, if I used to do things for events, like a one-off marketing thing for an event, I'm thinking, well, I've just done one actually, which isn't live yet. I think it's supposed to be happening this week, and it's in America. Whether it's going ahead, I don't know. But I've done all the work and I've been paid, and clients really lovely and very happy.
Yeah.
And I finished that over a month ago. So, but it makes me think, well, if those dry up, what is that going to affect me? If these events aren't happening, I don't do too many of those type of things. A lot of it tends to be more sort of imagery for marketing campaigns and things.
Sure.
And talking to other friends in agencies, they said they're really busy. So, that side of things seems to be okay. People are still advertising. People are still, doing that kind of stuff. I think there's still going to be museums that will need installations, that kind of stuff. I think it's been maybe a bit hard, too early to tell. Maybe I don't know about you. Have you noticed anything or?
The only thing I really noticed is the fact that people are kind of putting their projects a little bit on hold. It's like, oh, we've got this thing coming up, and then it was supposed to start in early April or whatever, and now we're like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily that they haven't got the money to spend on the project. It's the fact that they don't know what's going to happen from the country side of things. So they're like, oh, we're just going to hold off on it because it's not necessary as such. It's interesting that you say some agencies have been busy, because I know a lot of web agencies that I've worked for in the past, or friends who work aren't busy, and they're trying to fill their time with stuff as well, which is. But again, I guess it comes back to that thing. If people are pausing projects and postponing them, then and obviously there's going to be people who aren't working right now.
Yeah, I think it is a worrying time for sure, and I think likewise, are people going to spend on a print or it's? Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've certainly cut back my spending on Toolchests and slingshots. It's like it makes you. Hang on, do I actually need to buy that? It may only be 20, but should I not be spending on so-called frivolous things? So it makes you think, are people going to spend on a print or that kind of stuff?
But then at the same time, if you're not spending those things, then those other things don't exist. Like that transaction doesn't happen. So it's like, oh, if I've got it, then maybe I should spend it, because that person that keeps that person in doing their work, and it's a weird chicken and egg scenario, I guess.
It is. I think we all should. It is good to support each other for sure. Mm-hmm. It's like I've seen people saying about restaurants and stuff. I know Marcus Waring last night was saying that the industry is on the verge of collapse, and the comments on Twitter are just so awful. It's like, oh well, another restaurant, who cares? And I thought, you're talking about a whole industry here.
Yeah.
And I like going to restaurants. It's like suddenly everyone was like, well, don't you go to restaurants? It's like it's part of life. It's more. It's just gives you options to do these things. Saying though, well, who cares? Is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the same with arts, the same with web design, whatever it is. So I think we just need to ride it out a little bit and see what's going to happen. But yeah, it's obviously not easy for some people. I've seen some terrible tweets of like, I've just been made redundant. I can't pay my mortgage next month, and it's like, bloody hell. Yeah. that is horrible. And I've tried to, if I've seen someone, I've retweeted it just in case, they might pick something up. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's I think we've got to think maybe a bit differently, or diversify in some way, or anything like that. It's anything that can bring some money in. And then again, it's made us think, I guess, about consumer culture and what we're consuming, and do we need as much stuff, that kind of stuff. So which is a good debate to have, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. So I'll lighten it up a little bit after that one. But so I know you're big into your music. So what are you currently listening to? Do you have any good recommendations for people?
Well, listen, I'm 53, so let's be honest here. I don't know the latest trends and stuff, but I tell you an album that I think, did it come out last year? The Lana Del Rey album, Norman fucking Rockwell, isn't it? The only thing is, it's like she's suddenly just decided she can say the word fuck. It's like that's the only thing in the album, but I think it's an amazingly written. I know it won quite a lot of awards when it came out and was in a list of top 10 albums of the year in a lot of different lists. That's really good. What else am I listening to? I mean, some stuff is like very popular. Like, I love the new Pet Shop Boys stuff. It's like, I'm not a massive, I don't like all the stuff, but I like the early stuff. But this stuff is goes back to that. And then, I tend to, I've got some I love jazz from Miles Davis. So that's what I've got on vinyl. But I've also got, the Ramones, some punk, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
John Grant, who is in Iceland. His work is, I think, lyrically just amazing, very funny, quite rude, but really good. Really, the production level is amazing. So John Grant is on, and that's on Spotify as well.
Lastly, so what are your kind of top 3 tips to running your own business and taking that kind of plunge to do that, from leaving that 9 to 5 and that regular income and go into self-employment? What do you think are the top 3 things that people can do?
Well, it depends what type of work they're doing, I guess, but I'll speak from my perspective because it's the only thing I know really, but use all the channels, right? So I often see, I'll get a follower on Instagram and they say VFX artist, and they might be a student or something. And you go on their Instagram feed and it's just selfies of them. It's like, so it tells me nothing about who they are. It doesn't, it doesn't tell me though, well, actually they do cool work. And, it happens so often. So, and I get commissions and stuff from Instagram, people who've seen stuff on Instagram or even LinkedIn, so I've had stuff from LinkedIn, which is nuts. But so Instagram, even LinkedIn, dependent on what industry you're in or what you're trying to do, and Twitter and all those things. So it's about visibility, really. Yeah. And part of how I get work is me constantly putting out weird experiments or little experiments, because you like putting your head above the parapet and saying, oh, I'm here, I do this. And it's amazing how often people see it and go, actually, we've got this job at the minute that, maybe you could do that, So that's kind of core to how I get work. Another thing is, right, another practical one is never answer, my wife taught me this, never answer an email that has got your back up immediately. So give it 10, 15 minutes, give it an hour.
Right.
Because in the past I have, hammered on the keyboard and gone, this is bullshit, and then 10 minutes later you're reading it again and going, actually, they kind of had a point. I see where they're coming from. So so I always take a moment to read it and luckily I don't really get emails like that anymore, right? But sometimes if they want changes or something, and you're not really trying to figure out why they want it, but then if you give it an hour and you start thinking about it and you've calmed down, maybe it's really got you back up.
Yeah.
And you think, and then you go back and then of course you then have this relationship with your client, because your client, that's the other thing I would say, the client is not the enemy. I see so much crap on Twitter slagging clients off. Never ever do that. That's another tip. Do not ever go public about saying things about clients, because they will look shit up and it will come back and bite you. Yeah. So never do that. That's another one. It's a tangent. But yeah, so you want this relationship so you can then get a testimonial after the work is done from a client saying how great it is to work with you.
Yeah. And
that's the favourite thing that I do. Is like I get a testimonial and you get these amazing feedback going, you're such a nice guy to work with. It's like, oh, great, Yeah. So those kind of things. Use the tools that are out there, to streamline your work. So whether it's your accountancy stuff, use something like Free Agent or one of the things like that.
Yeah.
Gives you visibility of your business, of your spend, that kind of thing, but it's all automated. Do that. Be confident about what you charge. Do not be ambiguous, and know what you are worth. So, that's when you're first learning, when you're first starting out, you think someone commissioning you to do something. It's like, oh, wow, they want me to do work for them. Oh, I'll do it for free. It's like, oh, what an honor, you can't pay the bills doing stuff for free. And I have done stuff, where it's like hardly any money, and it's I've judged it because it was a good networking thing or a good publicity thing. But most of the time, make sure you charge what you should be worth, what you're worth. Don't worry about contracts. That's another one, ever. And the contract doesn't have to be complicated, but it will protect not only the client but yourself when things might go awry. Have what's called a kill fee, so 25% usually. So if the job gets cancelled, they owe you 25% of the final fee. Get a deposit. Some people always say, oh, this is impossible. It's like, no, it's not.
Right.
So I often say it's 50% up front. And I'm talking massive corporates I say this to. And they go, yeah, okay, fair enough. I've just had one where I've said that, and he said, listen, we might not be able to do the 50% up front because, it's just the way it go. We can get the work through. But you do I said, well, look, 30%, and then we can do maybe a milestone delivery thing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
There's a way to, it's not it's not all cut black and white.
Yeah.
So they're the main ones, really. Basically, and also don't be a dick. It's like be try and be nice. Not a nice and well, okay. I've always found it weird that we expect artists and stuff to be nice people who do the creative, beautiful work. Oftentimes, you find that Picasso was an absolute knobhead. If you read his stuff, he was horrible to his mistress, his wife, horrible.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't denigrate his work, in my opinion, right? So it doesn't go hand in hand that nice people make nice work, but you can afford to do that if you're Picasso, right? But if you're wanting to get repeat business and get people who can write nice things about you to recommend you, then you need to, be a pretty decent human being, I think, at least at that level. So I would say that, and also learn something new every day. Don't think you know everything. Because the older I get, the more I realise there's more and more I don't know. So
yeah, of course,
and I'm learning new things all the time, and that's what gets me up in the morning. So it's those things, really, a mix of business acumen and knowing your worth, and and staying curious, I guess.
Cool. And where can people find you on social media and things like that?
Well, I still have this thing called a personal website. I reckon they're going to be big. Yeah. It's, so brendandoors.com is, my website. Produceforuse.com is the products. And then on Twitter, Brendan Doors, and Instagram, Brendan Doors, all one word.
Yeah.
That's another tip. Try and have the same handle across all the, your Instagrams, your Twitters. It's kind of handy. So yeah, that's it really. Those are the main places. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. That was really good.
It's all right. Pleasure.